pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have a roll call, please?
Hannah,
Yes.
Callahan,
Yes.
You are
Rodriguez,
Yes.
unmuted.
Hill,
Here.
Scharf,
Here.
Kurtz,
Here.
O'Laughlin.
Yes.
Thank you. Next, I would like to have a motion to approve tonight's agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
Do have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion is carried. Did we have anything, nothing back there, nothing came in on Ring Central? Anybody here that wants to speak at public comment? Are you here for items on the agenda? Okay. We will move forward. Next on the agenda is my proclamation from the American Legion Auxiliary, Poppy Proclamation, whereas America is the land of the freedom preserved and protected willingly and freely by citizen soldiers, whereas millions who have answered the call to arms have died on the field of battle, whereas a nation at peace must be reminded at the price of war and the debt owed to those who have died in war. Whereas the red poppy has been designated a symbol of sacrifice of lives in all wars, and whereas the American Legion Auxiliary has pledged to remind Americans annually of this debt through the distribution of memorial flowers. Therefore, I, Bonita Davis, Mayor of Independence, Buchanan County, Iowa, do hereby proclaim this 21st and 22nd days of May 1921 as Poppy Day, and ask that all citizens pay tribute to those who have made the ultimate sacrifice in the name of freedom by wearing or displaying the memorial poppy on this day. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused to be affixed the official seal of Independence, Buchanan County, Iowa, this 10th day of May 2021. I'll pass that back. Okay. And I need a motion to accept and approve the consent agenda that approves the minutes of the April 12th, 2021 regular meeting.
So moved.
Second.
I do have a motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion is carried. Next, I will need a motion to approve claims for payment.
So moved. Second.
I do have a motion and second. Is there any questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion is carried. Next item on the agenda is for your information of revenues and expenses to date. Did anybody have any questions on that? I do appreciate Susie having that ready for us at each one of our
It is.
meetings.
It's very helpful. Thank you, Susie.
You're welcome.
Under petitions from the public, first I have Judy Olson. Would you like to come forward? We'll let you take your mask off and speak into the mic. Just give your name and address and let us know why you're here.
Okay. I'm Judy Olson. I live at 2003 206th Street, just outside of Independence, but Independence address. And I am here to share with you a project that I have been working on for some time that is finally coming to some fruition, which I think is of interest to the City Council because of the new revitalization project that's underway. So I have some copies. Papers. I think there should be enough for everyone. This actually is what I'm going to give to the paper as a press release about the project. Basically, I am a volunteer for Buchanan County Genealogy and also Buchanan County Tourism. And after I retired, I developed a passion for local history. And I started doing research. It was inspired by the Underground Tour, which is a historical society project that's been going on for some time, but we became curious about the history of the buildings above. So this was actually about 4 years ago, and I started doing some research using the resources in the Genealogical Center below here, which are tremendous and invaluable in what I was doing. It meant that I had to basically glean information from a lot of the newspapers, which we have clear back into the 1870s, and keep piecing together the pieces of a puzzle as to where businesses were downtown, the history of the buildings. You know, sometimes they didn't give, well, the addresses changed, they didn't give addresses, and so bit by bit, I began piecing this together. And the more I got into it, of course, I became fascinated by the stories of the people who were the ones who built our town. A big piece of the story is the fires. There were 2 fires that happened that actually destroyed our downtown. Some of you may know this, that I find that there are quite a few people who don't. But actually in 1873, there was a fire that destroyed a good chunk of the north side of Maine, from Harding Drug to about where Mr. Pete's Grill is now. And then 6 months later, on the night of May 25th, 1874, another fire occurred. And this one started on the west side of 2nd Avenue Northeast, which we call Chatham too, about where El Santos is. And it spread north and south. And again, they thought maybe they were going to contain it, but the wind whipped up, and next thing you know, it had jumped the street. There was a brand-new building, 3 stories, beautiful, beautiful building on the south side that caught fire, and once that went into flames, they couldn't stop it. The story, there are a lot of wonderful details to it, some heroics by various people who were in the town, that managed to contain it, but it actually burned the entire block from 1st Street to 2nd Street Southeast. So the downtown was very much devastated, and they had to rebuild. And actually, in the historical accounts, it was considered to be worse than the fire in Chicago in 1871, which was horrific. But per capita, it was more costly. The estimates came in for the 2 fires just shy of $600,000. And I think in my article there, I indicate that it's like $1,200,000 in our money. So that is significant in those times. And yet, people just kind of said, okay, we love our town, and they started rebuilding. And it really is an amazing story that before the end of the year, nearly 3/4 of the downtown had been reconstructed in this beautiful Italianate architecture that we still have, which is considered to be very unique. The continuity of the architecture, you don't see towns like this. There will be pieces that have Italianate and then something else and then something else. But ours was rebuilt pretty much within the span of that year and then up to 5 more years. There were a few additions later on, and but because this Italianate style was there, they continued to build on that to make it a really attractive town. So anyway, my project, that's a little background, my project has been doing all this research, and I wanted to come up with a way to share it. Well, with COVID, the idea of QR codes popped up again. And these have been around for a long time. This is what a QR code looks like. You've got a sample there on your sheet. And basically, you take your smartphone and you put it in camera mode, And with an iPhone, it's built in. With another phone, you might have to download an app. But basically, it will scan that and take you to a website then that has information. What this will do, and that code on your paper will actually work if you want to try it later. I have it set up to go to a website where you will get a little audio, a snippet about the building and who rebuilt it, who owned it. And then there will be a button that you can click on that says Learn More, that will then give you a brief summary of some of the businesses that were in that building over time. And the focus is, for this tour, 1870 to 1920, 50 years. So a couple of years before the fires and then after that. And because May 25th is the 147th anniversary of that fire, I decided to set a goal for myself to have this in place by then. So that's what this, the article I gave you is about, launching it on that date. And it will be just the buildings that are historic now. There are stories with those, say like Security Bank. There were actually 4 buildings there with wonderful histories, but the building itself is not an late 1800s building. So I've focused on the historic buildings to start with anyway. So basically, that's what I wanted to do, is come here tonight and share with you that this project is going to be launched. It's being sponsored by tourism, so that's why you will see the tourism logo in the scans, and it will be on these signs. Historical Society and Genealogy have had a lot to do with it, too, providing me with resources for this research. And this is, to me, kind of just the beginning, because when I've spent this much time in it, I've got to tell more of these stories. They're just really wonderful stories. So anyway, thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you very much.
you for your work on
For all your hard work.
Yes.
Thanks, Judy.
Great project.
Yeah.
Thank
it
you.
is.
Yeah, did you have any questions?
No, I just wanted to say, my third grade granddaughter showed me how to use my phone in Pella this weekend. Pretty easy.
It is. It's really slick, isn't it? Yeah.
Didn't realize how you actually did those. And
Yeah.
it says here.
And actually, the idea came because Buchanan County Conservation started using this year along trails. So Michael Mass, who's a naturalist up there, helped me get started on how to
Thank you
use
for all your time and efforts on this.
Okay, thank you.
It's interesting.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is a special event application for Independence Celebration Committee. Are you here for that? Okay.
In her defense,
Again, you can take your mask off, introduce yourself.
In my defense, I just found out about it 3 hours ago, so
You found out what? That you were here?
I just found out that I needed to come this evening
Oh.
3 hours ago, so
Oh,
I
lucky
do not have a
you.
nice speech
like I
prepared
say,
like she
in her
did,
defense,
but
I sent out a text to our group today and said we need a sacrificial lamb for today.
apparently I got nominated, so this is great.
So
And you-
she was the volunteer, but Shannon's been an excellent committee member for 5 or 6 years now?
Yeah,
Or
something
something
like
like
that,
that.
yeah.
And as most of you know, we have a great event and hope to continue to have it this year. Some of you may or may
I
not
don't
know
believe
this
I
is
even
my-
know who you are.
I'm Shannon Conaway.
Okay.
I live at 1108 9th Avenue Southwest.
Okay.
I've lived in Independence since 2004. I'm involved in a lot of things in the community, and I love the 4th of July. It's my favorite holiday, so I decided what better way to celebrate than to be part of the committee of planning it and having it be a special occasion for everybody in the city, so.
So you're requesting a motion to approve the special event as you presented it?
Yes.
So moved.
Second?
You already have a motion and a second. Are there any questions to our sacrificial lamb
Yes,
here?
any
You did
questions?
a better job than Juan does, so that's.
Well, yeah, Juan is stepping down after this year, so I think we're all gonna have to kind of step up to the plate not this year, but the following year. So we're gonna have to all learn from his great example and hopefully move forward with it, just like he has all the last 20 years that he's done it, so.
And thank you so much for 20 years of it.
Thank you.
Yes.
You guys do a great job.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Thank you.
I do have a motion and a second to approve this special election. Can I have a roll call, please?
Callahan, Yes. Rodriguez,
Yes?
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
Yes.
Kurtz.
Yes.
O'Laughlin.
Yes.
Hannah.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion is carried. You did good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we are down to hearings and ordinances. First one is I need a motion to file oral and written comments and consider adopting the ordinance for the rezoning application for Prees for the third and final time.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we do have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call, please?
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
Yes.
Kurtz.
Yes.
O'Laughlin.
Yes.
Hannah.
Yes.
Callahan. Yes.
Thank you. Motion is carried. Next is a motion to file oral and written comments and consider adopting the ordinance for the third time for the rezoning under for officials and for the final time.
So moved.
Second.
I do have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call, please?
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
Yes.
Kurtz,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Callahan. Yes. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion is carried. Okay, I think I put my paper away too soon. Next is a motion to approve third and final passage for adoption of pursuant to Iowa Code Section 380.3, which is, what's this one on?
This should be 69.08, the no parking on the
Okay,
Ninth Avenue.
9th Avenue Southwest. Or 9th Street, I'm sorry.
So moved.
Second.
Did you say northwest?
I said avenue and it's street.
It's
So
also
It's 9th
south.
Street Southwest.
southwest.
Okay.
Now that we're in the right location. Did I
All this
hear-
does is change the no parking from one side to the other, correct?
Right, it moves the no parking to the south side.
Yeah.
So that, excuse me,
It
to
moves to the
the
north side.
north side.
Did I get,
Motion.
you made the motion, did we have a second?
I second.
Okay. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Scharf,
Yes.
Kurtz.
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Callahan. Yes. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Thank you. Motion is carried. Okay, now we have a public hearing in regard to Chapter 122.16. I need a motion to receive and file proof of publication of notice of public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion is carried. Next, I need a motion to hold the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
I do have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. We are now in public hearing for the food truck exemption ordinance.
Do we have any comments at the City Hall?
The only comment that we've received has been from Pete Gomer, who is looking to do something more consistently with food trucks on, not the same food truck, but he wants to have various vendors come in each weekend for the majority of the summer at the Allerton. And so it's really what moved us into, hey, we should do something with this. And he's asked for something sooner than later because I know he's got a food truck he would like to bring in the next couple of weeks. And so that's the only comment I've received.
Are they looking to do this on First Street or in the parking lot behind?
Well, that is part of what has to be in the application to have the food truck, where we would call it out under this section of the city code. He'd have to identify where he wants it. And I know we've talked about both. The challenge with putting it on the street out front is it's more convenient for the patrons, it takes up parking and makes it harder to come to the Allerton. If we put it in back, you have some stairs to deal with, but, and we've talked about both with Pete. But he would make that request in whatever event or application he would submit to you for consideration.
Does the truck have to be tied to an existing business in order to meet the ordinance?
Under this code, the intent is to tie it to a specific business. Otherwise, it's a transient merchant, and our code covers that. We've been treating it a little bit different under the transient merchant. You know, I'd let Steve address this if he wishes, but it cleans it up so that we can separate out the food truck when it's tied to the chamber, the special events committee, the Brubicue, a business. They're taking on that responsibility, if you will, as opposed to just a food truck coming to town to say, hey, I want to set up for a day or a weekend or, you know, what have you. If it's truly a transient merchant, I think we still want to follow the transient merchant code that we have set out.
Yeah, the idea was just to reduce that burden for, you know, someone looking to bring their food truck to town, you know, very infrequently, not have to go through that whole process.
So with this ordinance, the business or whatever is sponsoring it would still have to come to the council each time to get an approval to have it?
Right, the council would have to approve individual events, if you will. In the case of the Allerton, it may be a series of events that they request. But it is still up to the council to approve the, you know, the special event, if you will, or the occasion.
Just for clarification, how does this affect, you know, events like ours, the 4th of July, the barbecue, and those events that we have down at Riverwalk?
Under that scenario, we would simply address Section 122 in your special event application to authorize you to have those food trucks there. But this allows us to call that out separate from the transient merchant,
Okay.
if you will. It
So like
cleans
an
up what we've,
organization Like us coming in here today, did we have to fill out a separate form for the vendors that we're going to have down at the park? Or
No.
would that event application include that?
well, moving forward, if this is passed, it would, I would hope, include that in one of the sections that we are
Yeah.
exempting for the celebration committee, for example. Because under yours, we have a series of city code sections that we are exempting or waiving for your event.
Just trying to get some clarification on.
Right.
Because we have events that happen at the park or, you know, one-off type things, so.
Right.
Just trying to make sure everybody understands what the requirement is, or would be, I guess.
I would like for the council to be able to exempt the food truck specifically on those types of events as opposed to suggesting that we're going to waive all transient merchant activities for that event, if it's only a food truck. You know, we can waive all of 122 for transient merchants, or we can just take this section that has identified as mobile food vendors, mobile food trucks, for the case of the Allerton or, you know, Brubicue is more specific to a mobile food truck.
Question on this, do the mobile food trucks have to have like a state inspection and carry insurance and those kinds of things?
The mobile food trucks are required to have a state bond issued by the Secretary of State.
Okay.
That's anywhere in the state. We still require that. I think we still want that bond, whether we waive the additional requirements that we have in our transient merchant section of the code, but you still want proof of that bond.
And they have to be inspected and post that?
Well, that's all up to the Secretary of State and the Secretary of State's process. I'm not sure what all they have to go through as far as inspections. I'm assuming that they have, if they're serving food, a certain inspection criteria through public health that they have to go through.
We usually have someone from Blackhawk County show up and inspect all of our vendors when we
Right,
have a
and-
4th of July celebration and make sure that they all have a permit and the
Right.
proper licensing to serve food down there, so.
Right.
So they do, there are some requirements there.
Our requirement has to do with the state bond, because one of the hangups that we've run into with food trucks is it requires that they have a bond in the state code, not just the city code. Well, that bond is not for us, it's, again, through the Secretary of State that they have to go through and get that. So our requiring that is not an extra burden, they've already got that responsibility.
So Juan, do you know the people that are gonna be down there for the events ahead of time? Nobody just shows up at the last
Oh,
minute.
yeah, no,
says, "I got a food
anybody that
truck."
comes to serve at our event has to pre-register, they have to fill out an application with us and go through that process. We won't let just anybody just show up and decide they want to. So everybody has to,
And that'd be the same way with this one. They're gonna say this food truck's coming in Friday night.
Right.
Another food truck drives to town and says, oh, there's a food truck there. Just can't pull up and serve either, can you?
Right. No, another food truck could come in and serve, but they've got to go through our transient merchant process to get the city permit then, if they're not affiliated with the celebration committee or the Allerton or whoever it might be, so.
so that brings up an interesting thing, because we have dealt with this on the celebrations committee at times where somebody will just show up down the block outside of our designated area and just start selling stuff. And sometimes we've had to ask people to leave, or they'll, attempt to come into our area, and we're like, no, can't be here. So how is that something like that addressed? Like if we have an event like ours going on, and we have 30, 40,000 people in town, and somebody shows up with a truck and wants to park down somewhere, and
They still have to have a transient merchant permit through the city. If they don't, we call people like Mr. Lau and,
they can't just show up and.
no. No, they cannot just show up and start vending. And that's part of the reason we have that section of the code specific.
I know Heartland Acres had a couple of events out there where they had the food truck from up in Oline come down. Now, did they go through the,
We went through that with them. It was painful at some points in time with them, but they did go through the process of getting the background check, providing us with the insurance and all the things that we require in the transient merchant license.
okay. If good food can come
It was good food, I heard. They ran out of ribs
too quickly.
very quickly, yeah. But, no, he did go through our processes.
Any other questions, discussion? Then I ask for a motion to close the hearing and receive and file oral and written comments.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to close the meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion's carried. We are no longer in our open meeting. Next is a motion to consider adopting the ordinance for the first time.
So moved.
Second.
I do have a motion and a second to adopt the ordinance for first time. May I have a roll call, please?
Kurtz,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Callahan. Yes. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion is carried. You do have the option to waive the requirements of 3 considerations on this. Are you willing or wanting to?
I'd make the motion that we waive the second, go to the third reading.
Okay.
I'd second that.
Okay, I do have a motion and a second to waive the second and third readings of this and pass this pursuant to Iowa Code Section 380.03. May I have a roll call,
I don't think
please?
that's fair to our local people that have food trucks that might not be aware of this. I've not heard one word about this in the community. We voted in all 3 readings one night, and tomorrow somebody says, hey, what'd you do? But that's you guys' vote.
We do have a motion and a second, right? So may I have a roll call, please?
O'Laughlin,
No.
Hannah,
No.
Callahan. No. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
No.
Kurtz.
No.
Okay, so we are only passed for the first time. It'll have to be on the agenda next time, too. Next on the agenda is I need a motion to set May 24th at 6:30 PM for public hearing and to amend the city code, chapter 105.05 for open burning.
So moved.
Second.
Do have a motion and a second? You don't need a roll call on this. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. We are down to loan agreements. Starting with a public hearing for the water revenue loan agreement. I need a motion to receive and file proof of publication of notice of public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Do have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Next, I need a motion to hold the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Do have a motion and a second to hold the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. We are now in public hearing in regards to the water revenue loan agreement.
This is the water revenue loan to replace the SRF funding that we were not able to secure because of timing for the Highway 150 project. It's $1.2 million of water revenue loan or debt that we are incurring.
Any other discussion, comments?
Is the purpose of this is the highways reconstruction, or?
It's a Highway 150 reconstruction.
Yeah,
It's,
I had questions, somebody called me about that.
it's both the north and south. The 1.2 includes both segments of it, but it's all of our water main replacement associated with that project.
And we had to switch to the bonds because of potential delay for the,
The the SRF loan, which we were pursuing, hit a snag with the State Archaeological Society because of a possible perceived conflict with Indian mounds in the area around the courthouse. We had no way of knowing that. Their newspapers apparently went back a lot further than ours, and there was a story in there about once upon a time somebody disturbed a mound, and they might have pushed it into where the highway is. Even though there's an existing highway, we're staying there, there was a chance. And they said that if we go through the process to enter into a programmatic agreement, which would allow us to continue on, following all the same rules that we have to follow if we happen to find human remains anyway, the project wouldn't start until they expected July if they fast-tracked it. Mark Crawford is here, and he was voting against us waiting until July to start that project.
Good man.
If there's no other discussion, then I will ask for a motion to close the hearing and receive and file oral and written comments.
So moved.
Second?
Do have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. We are out of public hearing. Next on my agenda is a motion to approve a resolution taking additional action to enter into a water revenue loan agreement.
So moved?
Second.
I do have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call, please?
Hannah.
Yes.
Callahan. Yes. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Hill.
yes.
Scharf.
Yes.
Kurtz.
Yes.
O'Laughlin.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion is carried. Next, we have a public hearing in the sewer revenue refunding loan agreement. I need a motion to receive and file proof of publication of notice of public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
I do have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion is carried. Next, I need a motion to hold the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
I do have a motion and a second to hold the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. We are now in public hearing for the sewer revenue refunding loan agreement.
This is our current sewer revenue bond. It has 4 coupons are 4 years left outstanding. It's callable this June 1st. We went back to the original lender to ask for a modification to our interest rate for the remaining 4 years of the loan. They opted not to modify their interest rate, which was in the neighborhood of 3.25 over the 4-year period. We went to Bank Iowa, discussed with them the opportunity for this revenue bond. They came back with a 0.6% interest rate over the 4-year, cumulative interest rate, if you will, over the 4 years of debt that remain, saving us $27,000 in year 1 in interest.
Thank you to Bank of Iowa for being a good
Yeah.
public citizen.
Is there any other discussion or comments? Then I will ask for a motion to close the hearing and receive and file oral and written comments.
So moved.
Second.
Do have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion is carried. Next, I need a motion to approve a resolution taking additional action on proposal to enter into a sewer revenue refunding loan agreement, authorizing term sheets, authorizing the call of outstanding bonds, approving and authorizing a loan agreement, and providing for the insurance and securing of payment of sewer revenue refunding bonds, Series 2021.
So moved.
Second.
I do have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call, please?
Callahan?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Hill?
Yes.
Scharf?
Yes.
Kurtz?
Yes.
O'Laughlin?
Yes.
Hannah?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion is carried. Moving right along, we are under urban renewal. I need a motion to have final consideration and final adoption for an ordinance deleting property from the tax increment financing district for the Independence Urban Renewal Area of the City of Independence, Iowa, pursuant to Section 403.19 of the Code of Iowa.
So moved.
Second.
I do have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call, please?
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Hill?
Yes.
Scharf?
Yes.
Kurtz?
Yes.
O'Laughlin?
Yes.
Hannah?
Yes.
Callahan? Yes.
Thank you. Motion is carried. Next, we are down to a motion to approve resolution setting the date of meeting at which it is proposed to approve a development agreement with Independence Affordable Storage LLC, including annual appropriations, tax increment payments.
Is this just south of where the proposed workforce development house project was?
Yes, this would be south of Enterprise Court,
Okay.
between that and Highway 20 in that vacant lot.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Do have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call, please?
Hill?
Yes.
Scharf?
Yes.
Hannah?
Yes.
Callahan?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion is carried.
Isn't this going to be kind of limiting on what, we already had a question about parking. This will take away open space that could have been purchased or leased.
Folks that are looking at the housing tried to buy this lot first, and it actually is owned by the folks that own the fireworks store. And they were not willing to sell because they don't want a building that's going to be so tall as it blocks their sign from Highway 20. And that's why they had originally purchased it, was to protect their visibility. The storage units are going to be lower. Part of the agreement, obviously, is they stay lower so they don't block that signage.
Okay, next on the agenda, public hearing for proposed amendment to Independence Urban Renewal Area. I need a motion to receive and file proof of publication of notice of public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
I do have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Now I need a motion to hold the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
I do have a motion and a second to hold the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. We are now in public hearing.
This is, in essence, amending the urban renewal plan to allow for the TIF applications that we have coming in front of us and adding to the district the property for pre's. It includes where the storage units are going, the apartment complex, and then adds to that the pre's property where they're doing their expansion.
Any other discussion or comments? Then I will ask for a motion to close the hearing and receive and file oral and written comments.
So moved.
Second.
I do have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion is carried. Next, I need a motion to approve a resolution to declare necessity and establish an urban renewal area pursuant to Section 403.4 of the Code of Iowa, and to approve the urban renewal plan amendment for the Independence Urban Renewal Area.
So moved.
Second.
I do have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call, please?
Scharf,
Yes.
Kurtz.
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Callahan,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion is carried. We are down to E. I need a motion to consider an providing for the division of taxes levied on taxable property in the May 2021 addition to the Independence Urban Renewal Area pursuant to Section 403.19 of the Code of Iowa.
So moved.
Second.
I do have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call, please?
Kurtz,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Callahan,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion is carried. You do have available on tonight's agenda a motion to suspend the statutory rule requiring the ordinance to be considered and voted on 3 times. Anybody want to make a motion in that regard?
I would make a motion to approve it for passage, simply because we're in construction season, and I think if they can get an early start on the construction, it's going to really help them out.
And
I don't see any reason we would have any objections to it, so I would make the motion.
Okay.
I'd second it.
I do have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call, please?
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
No.
Callahan,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
No.
Kurtz.
Yes.
That motion did carry. Okay. Moving right along. Next, I need a motion to approve a resolution setting a date of meeting at which proposed to approve the development agreement with Pre's Enterprise Incorporated, including annual appropriation tax increment payments.
So moved.
Second.
I do have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call, please?
Callahan,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
Yes.
Kurtz,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Hannah.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion is carried. Next, we are down to resolutions. Motion to approve a resolution of support and maintenance of the Liberty Trail Extension Project.
In order to submit the application for the COVID-19 Federal Rec Trail Program totaling $773,000, we have to include a resolution of support and commitment to maintain the trail for 20 years. standard resolution for all federally funded projects where we have to commit to maintain the project, street or trail. So
When's the
moved.
deadline to submit
17th
of this month?
of this month.
Ooh,
I'd make the motion.
I'd second that.
I do have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call, please?
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
Yes.
Kurtz,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Callahan. Yes.
Thank
Since
you.
we're on the
Motion
topic of
is
trails,
carried.
how are we coming as far as the Sixth Avenue one with gaining,
We have some outstanding easements yet.
do we need, is it a cost thing, or?
I don't want to avoid the question. I'd be happy to visit with you, but I think we should do it when it's on the agenda.
Sure.
So, or after the meeting, Mike, I'd be happy to visit with you about that.
Okay, we are down to other business. The first item is FEMA lease, a motion to approve a 3-year lease of property located at 300 4th Avenue Northwest.
Robert Hawken has been maintaining this property. It's adjacent to his residence, and he would like to lease this property, as we've done with other properties in a similar situation, and it makes sense. It's actually a 37-month lease, I want to point out. We've set it up so that it renews at the end of a fiscal year, which just keeps bookkeeping a little simpler, so it is a 3-year lease. There's an extra month in there.
Benefits us, we don't have to mow it.
That's
I
correct.
make motion.
Second.
I do have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call, please?
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
Yes.
Kurtz,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Callahan. Yes. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion is carried. Next, we have a home occupation application. And I will need a motion to approve or disapprove a home occupation permit for D. Wessels for a barber shop, I believe.
Make the motion to approve.
Second.
I have a
Okay,
question. Did they go through the process where we got all the signatures from the residents and that type of thing? Because normally that's all kind of attached in here.
They did go through the process of getting the signatures. I will tell you, there's been some ongoing confusion about that, whether it's 75% of those within 300 feet or those that are immediately adjacent to the property. Going back to the zoning code specifically, it is those people immediately adjacent to the property that is asking for the home occupation permit, which they do have. Planning and zoning also address this. No, I won't say that. I'm sorry. I'll pass on that one. I know they have the signatures on the,
They did.
they did do it. Okay.
Todd sent me an email that he forgot to include it on the minutes, but I printed out a copy and put it on everybody's spot. And there is also a copy of the application in administrative content.
Okay.
Now, does something like this where they're performing a service, do they have to have water access and restroom access for their customers?
They do have to be able to provide restrooms, if I understand it right, but it goes through the permitting. If it's a barber shop, they still have to have the appropriate license.
Okay. Is that
And
what
Todd
this
does
note
do-
is here?
Yes.
Okay,
Todd does have to inspect that as well.
okay.
any other comments, questions? Then may I have a roll call, please?
Scharf,
Yes.
Kurtz.
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Callahan. Yes. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion is carried. Next, we are down to motion to approve the MOU for fiscal agent status to support the Buchanan County Substance Abuse Coalition. I know that was discussed at our work session, and you did have a paper put on your place tonight with additional information. Did we ever get anybody to
We
connect
have-
with us?
Yeah, we've got Nora Kratovic with Pathways. Melissa, and Melissa, I apologize. I lost your last name here. And Heather Hotchkiss is here. Gerda, thank you. That are here to discuss this with you. I think Nora has a brief presentation, and it includes that PowerPoint. I printed off a copy to make sure that you have it in front of you. It's also attached to board docs. With the mayor's permission, I turn it over to Nora.
I'm fine with that. Nora, are you ready?
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen for those of you that are connected. So I am representing, yes, I am a Pathways employee, but today I am also a coalition member. We are the Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition of Buchanan County, and we are looking for your support today for the following reason. Just one second. If you see in the second slide, the Substance Abuse Coalition is fairly new, and not a lot of people understand or know where this is coming from and why all of a sudden we are asking the City of Independence for their support. So the Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition was created in 2019. We are a nonprofit organization that has representation from various sectors of the county. And the purpose or the goal is to reduce substance abuse throughout the county via education and in our communities with our youth and families. Also in that second slide, you guys can see the purpose, which is included in our bylaws that have been already approved. And now I'm moving on to the third slide, which is the one that has the question about what about the coalition's funding. So we got together because we see the need for more prevention, substance abuse prevention in our communities in Buchanan County. And in order to do that, we need funding. We need funding, and the funding can come from various sources. One of those happens to be a federal grant, which is the Drug Free Communities Program. I'm gonna, in a few minutes, I'm gonna let Melissa talk to you about a little bit more about more details on the Drug Free Communities Grant. But you can see that the Drug Free Communities Program actually comes from the Office of National Drug Control Policy, along with the Centers of Disease Control, or the CDC, and prevention. So the main point or focus of this grant, which Melissa can tell you the amount of it, is to prevent and reduce youth substance use. That is the main focus. If you go to the next slide where it asks the question, how does it work? Melissa is going to give us more details, but I only summarized it. Basically, the grant empowers local communities, local leaders to implement local solutions. So we are not looking for the cookie cutter approach. We are looking to learn more about our community and really target the problems that are pertinent to our communities. And the coalition works together, as I said, with the representation of 12 different sectors. And every sector brings an expertise that can give their feedback as to how to better tackle this issue. On the next slide, I'm gonna let Melissa talk to you about the drug-free communities and how that works.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Melissa Girdham. I am sitting over here in the Des Moines area right now, but I work with coalitions across the state, and I've put a lot of time and effort in with this coalition with these guys, and they have put even more time and effort outside of work to make this happen. They have a lot of passion behind them to make the county substance-free, or to help our youth within the county. So the Drug Free Communities Grant was originally brought up by Senator Grassley. So in the early 2000s, this is what helped push our nation to look for less substances. So since 2015, there have been 18 different counties in the state of Iowa that have had this grant. So that's just 5 years. We've had 18 different counties. And every year, these counties receive $125,000. So this grant can be awarded up to 5 years. And if you're lucky enough and you apply again, you can get years 6 through 10. So we're looking at $125,000 a year. What the grant requires is different aspects of your community. So we're talking about the 12 sectors. So, you know, business, law enforcement, schools, hospitals. We're looking for everybody, every walk of life across the county to help make this grant work. So that's why we're seeking all this help. That's why we're asking to help run this grant. So right now, we have in place to hire one full-time coordinator to work on the grant across the county, a part-time school resource officer, and then also funding to help carry out those prevention programs. So the recent one that was going on in the county was the Drug Take Back Day. So that is looked at federally. So we had members that are a part of the coalition that helped during that day. We also see life skills going on in the schools. We see community fairs going on in the, you know, out in the community. Anything to help boost that education that, you know, there are substances in the area, here are the statistics, and here's what it does to the brain. You know, anything that helps boost that
Melissa,
Go ahead.
can I ask you a question? Wouldn't this be more?
I can hear you, yes?
Yeah, my name is Michael Laughlin, and I've just retired from MHI after 40 years of teaching, and I've worked with Nora before in these endeavors as well as other endeavors in this regard over that time. And I think it's inappropriate for us to be the funding source, to be the administrator. I'd like to see the school. I wonder why the school isn't the, since it's targeted primarily for youth and stuff. I feel like it puts an undue burden on the city as far as the administration and the functions within. And why wouldn't the school be the appropriate choice?
I understand your worry. I know at this point in time, the school is not able to, Nora, how do I explain this? The school did not have the ability to, and I'm not sure why.
You also have to remember, and I'm sorry that I'm trying to also support to answer to your question. Number one, we're looking for leadership, and I know that the leadership can actually come from various sources. And yes, initially we approached the school because, like you said, it makes the most sense. However, when the school came back and said, no, we have tried, especially the superintendent, Russ, he actually said, you know, I really want this to happen, but it has to be put up out there and see what they think about. It's not just me. So his efforts did not prove successful, and basically they declined. We have also reached out to the county at large, and there hasn't been really a positive response as of yet. This is a county effort, and we're looking for any entity, any organization that can have the food ahead in leadership. And we feel that the county seat, the City of Independence, can and has the potential and the capacity to do this. We have seen it take on other types of tasks, and we believe that they can invest their time and their capacity in, what is out there for our community as a whole.
Well, Nora, hopefully I doubt if you know this, but we had a discussion about a SRO for the school, and people were not in favor of it. And some of us feel that this is just a backdoor attempt to get an SRO from the city, which will, in a specific number of years, 5 at the most, put us in the position of having to fund 50% of an additional position that we really don't need or can afford. So that's another concern we have.
And Nora, I can play on that one. So the intent of the DFC is to eventually obtain sustainable funding. So we are, after year 5 or towards year 5, we are slowly writing the SRO out of the grant. Right now, they are only 20% funded by the grant. The rest is coming from the schools. So, you know, the goal of the federal government is to work on sustainability. So hopefully by the end of year 5 or close to year 5, we will have a different means to sustain an SRO.
So it's guaranteed throughout the 5-year period, if we qualify for 5 years, that only 20% will come from the grant that the city would administer.
Okay.
This is Bob Hill. Question here on the SRO. Now, this is like there's 12 participants in this, this group, and I see there's 3 school districts. Would an SRO officer be going between all 3 school districts?
I will tell you that,
Melissa, would you like to answer on that? Or even Al, the discussion has been including the city police chief, Dustin, because he's our chair of the coalition, but there's been discussions about that.
the independent school district is the only one that has offered funding from the school district for an SRO at this point. It's not that anybody else isn't interested or doesn't want it, but so far the City of Independence School District is the only one with actual funding on the table for the position.
Well, if they've got that funding, then they should administer the grant. Obviously, they have
Well,
funding.
at this point, they're putting money into it as well as, other time and resources. They haven't asked the city for funding if we can get it through the grant.
But our funding comes in the form of administering the grant.
That's correct.
And after reading the MOU, there's a significant amount of work to administering the grant and the follow-ups and that.
That's correct.
I would rise in opposition to this simply because of its lack of effect for the city and the cost to the city.
This is John Kurz. I'm sitting here trying to figure out why the City of Independence would take something over that's going to be affecting the entire county. I'm sorry, I don't think we should be put in that position. And I think with Mike's comment, we'd be having to provide administrative services out of our offices.
We're able to
Would
get
probably
refunded.
add another employee to the city.
We're able to get refunded for some of that, right, Al?
That's correct. We get reimbursed for some of those costs associated with the administration. We're also part of the county. We can say that it's county-wide, but as a county seat, we're the largest player other than maybe the county supervisors themselves as far
Jessup
as.
School administered or East Buchanan.
If we're leadership, though, in town, like you're just saying, $600,000 is a lot to put toward our kids. If you had one grandkid in that school system that got helped over drugs, it'd pay for itself.
That's only $125,000 a year.
$125,000.
That's right.
A year.
Over 5 years.
5 years.
Saving one kid is worth a lot.
You betcha. Especially if it's your grandkid.
I still say no. I think it's no, I can't.
We do have somebody here locally that would like to speak, Laura and Melissa.
I'm
so
sure
we're
you
gonna-
guys all know that most of this is very personal to my family. I've done a lot of research in the last year. I even gave up my job so that I could go out and speak prior to COVID. What I have found out is we think of drugs, alcohol, tobacco as affecting maybe our middle school kids and mostly our high school kids.
No.
It is not that way exactly, Mike. When Nora spoke over at East Buchanan, one of the deputies over there talked about ticketing a 5th grader for vaping. We have 9 and 10-year-olds in Independence that are being arrested for using and dealing drugs. That's a 3rd or 4th grader. My granddaughter's going to be in 3rd grade next year. How many of you have children or grandchildren that are in those age groups?
Just as a quick interruption, you want to introduce yourself so
Sorry.
anybody that's watching.
Heather
can hear.
Hotchkiss. And I'm at 807 Park Avenue here in Independence.
So this is
So-
not just
I've
something
seen this for
happening in the
past
high
15
schools?
years.
I'm sure you have, Mike, but so many people, just as myself, don't realize how drugs, tobacco is changing, the vaping. These kids are vaping THC, and I'm not talking the lower class. Some of our best athletes are using THC vaping. We have kids that are being enticed by the gummy bears that look, if you look at a THC-laced gummy bear and a gummy bear that you buy in the grocery store, you cannot tell the difference. They're taking like your licorice whips. They're lacing them with THC. This is how they entice our children. We have to do preventative and let Buchanan County and let Independence be the start. And then, yes, we need to work with Jessup, we need to work with East Buchanan, but let's let Independence be the start of it, please. This is something that is going on in every county, and as I have found out in the last 2 years, many people in our community do not understand that we have a problem. And any community that says they don't is putting their head in the sand.
The problem has been there for many years. The difference is the substances.
Exactly.
And though possibly this is worthwhile, I'm not going to comment on it because I've been a part of some of these programs through the years, and I won't say whether I think they're good or whether they're a waste of time and money. But this is something that should be done by a school, not by the city of Independence, not by us. I've had people within my own neighborhood that have stopped me and said, why would the city take that on? And they're right.
I understand we want the schools to take it on, but think of what the schools are dealing with. They've had to deal with trying to educate our kids through a COVID period of time.
Yeah, and they've had huge.
We're putting a lot of responsibility on teaching our kids about things through the schools. We need to start as a community and start teaching our kids and doing the prevention through our communities and not necessarily through the schools. Yes, the schools are a major part of it, but we also need to step back from the schools and start looking at our community and other ways besides the school system. We want them to teach so many different things, and the resources and COVID, and now to take on what we're asking you to take on is just another step that we're asking them. And I think we need to start looking outside of our school district and start looking into our community.
Well, one thing, as I thought this through, one of our goals has been how does the city interact with the youth in our community? You know, and we've talked about, do they come to council meetings? I think this is an opportunity for the city to take a leadership role in a problem that everybody wants to point the finger to everyone else to take the leadership on. And I think it's an opportunity for the city to make a statement that we care about our young people. We feel like this is a program that is worth making an effort to implement. As far as the school resource officer, I'm a little leery of getting involved in that, but I don't want to lose sight of the rest of the program simply because of our hesitancy to fund a school resource officer, which doesn't necessarily have to actually be a part of this. I guess the other question I would have is, have we put thought into how many hours a week city staff would be involved? And as somebody said, would we need to bring on additional staff? I mean, we only have 3 people currently, and I think they're pretty busy most days. How are we going to do this?
You got, Susie's in a new role, and you're learning yet. And so I'm just saying, a lot of your time needs to be doing your job efficiently and learning what you need to learn. So I'm just saying, you have enough on your plate.
Is Mr. Hepke on tonight?
I did not see Mr. Hupkey on tonight, no.
Could we give some of his information out? Because you said in that last meeting, right?
I did sit in the last meeting. His biggest challenge is right now, and we addressed this a little bit with Heather's comments, but vaping is a growing concern. The vaping of THC is the biggest issue that they have in the schools right now. One of the things that they're hoping for to help with this, yes, they want the school resource officer. They've been pushing for that for 2 or 3 years now. They've come to the council for that. But they are also looking at the Halo systems in the restrooms, which is a vaping detection system. They've got, I think he said $20,000 worth of infrastructure to put into place just in those Halo systems in the high school. Now, they also have issues in the middle school, or in the, I'm sorry, I think he said the middle school, didn't he?
Well, it's kind of combined with
Yeah.
middle school kids.
Junior,
high school.
senior high.
Junior, senior high, but I think West Elementary was also included in some of their target, if you will. Vaping is his biggest challenge, and so that was one thing where he said right there, he said, right out of the chute, he's looking at $20,000 for these Halo systems.
I don't dispute, and I think the city should be taking a leadership. My question is, how much thought have we put into how are we going to handle managing this with our current level of staff?
The way we've managed it to this point is really a team approach. We've used 3 different staff at the city so far. Now, we don't have the grant. We're applying for the grant. I don't want to get ahead of that. There is some work that goes into administering the funding. The biggest part of administrating this, though, is the time management of staff. Most of our contribution is in-kind services. It is not the cash. Now, we can take the easy way out and write the check. What we're working on is doing the in-kind match because we don't want to put that extra burden on the taxpayers. And we've been tracking that for 2.5 years now through Katie O'Loughlin at the PD, through Dustin Dahlbach. We've had some up here, but our activity up here at City Hall has been somewhat limited to this point. It would increase substantially, to your point, if we actually have the funding, because this is where we manage it. Have we spent time trying to figure out the exact number of hours? I'm not going to pretend I have a number that I can give you. I don't. But it's the financial management piece that we're already doing.
If, say, we had to hire a half-time person, would we be reimbursed through this grant to pay for this half-time person that, because you said we don't want to burden the taxpayer, but if we have to hire another staff member on our own, then indirectly we are.
Melissa, in the grant itself, there's a portion for grant administration, correct?
Correct. We already have, I'm going to say between $5,000 and $10,000 already allotted to pay for that fiscal agent or who is going to help run the books. And then on top of that, we have a full-time coordinator that helps run the coalition. So that coordinator puts everything together, and then the fiscal agent is just the person that checks the boxes, making sure that we're running the money the right way.
Is there a software program that could be used for this purpose that intertwines with our current software? Does this grant have a software program that administers how you keep all the records and stuff?
No, it does not. The CDC, they just require that you report up every so often. And I'm sure that they will come out with more information once the grant gets pushed out, but they are very easy to work with, I will tell you that.
Just for clarification, for the city to administer this, it's essentially a checks and balance of financials and maybe generating a check or two, or whatever the case.
Well, it's the financial reporting like we would with
Right.
our street projects, our federally funded street projects, or trails projects, any of the other grants or financial, federal programs that we use.
And you know, if the grant is going to pay for a good portion of that, I mean,
$5 to $10 grand isn't going to come close.
do you really think we're going to put that many hours in on writing checks?
I do did you read the MOU? Did you read the
Yeah, I looked
criteria?
at it.
Yeah, so did I.
Okay, but, I just think it's a small price to pay for potentially one life to save. So,
I'm all for saving lives, but I disagree with that. And as far as the City of Independence, the City of Independence is the only entity that really has put forward stuff for the youth, with the youth sports, with the Falcon Civic Center, after-school programs, pardon?
Skate park.
Skate park.
If somebody doesn't step up and do this, they can't apply for the grant, though.
Well, that's,
If we don't
And-
do it, we put them
It's
back
not our
18
problem.
months.
I know Mike is talking about the different things the city has brought for our youth to do.
yeah.
The problem is, it doesn't mean that it's only happening to kids who don't have things to do. These kids are vaping, they're using alcohol, and it doesn't matter whether we've got skate parks, whether we've got trails for them. Our athletes are doing it. So we can't just categorize it into a specific type of person or social economic background or whatever the case may be. It can happen to the poorest person in the world, and the richest person in the town can have their kid involved in vaping or alcohol or drugs. It doesn't matter.
And it
And I'm
turns
sure
into an
Mike-
adult problem then.
And then it turns into an adult problem. And as Mike knows, it usually starts with alcohol, and then it goes from alcohol, it goes to marijuana, from marijuana, it can go
Not
to
so much
meth.
anymore. It's the substances, the vaping substances are the biggest entry-level thing that we've seen in the last 15 years. In
And there's
fact,
no control over that.
no, there's
You could
not.
take two of them and vape in one, you wouldn't have any effects. The next one could kill you.
And another thing is, with prevention in mass, like Darren, those are good programs. I mean, they're good efforts, but really they don't. It takes it takes an individual intervention with these people to stop it. I mean,
Well-
it's primarily, yeah.
It starts at home. It starts with
Yes, it does.
teaching-
That's exactly.
It starts with teaching the
Heather.
parents what to look for.
If I may, Mike, and for all the council members, with this grant, what we really want to focus on is exactly what you are describing. We welcome every feedback that you're giving us, because all of that goes into thinking into what strategies can we actually target, and that's what we have been nailing it down. Right now, the process is to apply, and we have painted a picture with data, some of it that I just shared with you, but we are painting a picture as to how we see the problem and from different perspectives. We understand that it sounds a big responsibility, and it sounds like taking over a big job. However, when you think about prevention, the prevention should come from the community as a whole, and not 100% can always come from the school. It also takes part in the parents, the community at large. So that's one of that's one thing that I will point that out, that is important for us as a coalition. It needs to be a community effort, and if members of government are not fully involved, we will not always grasp how we can tackle this problem. So we wanted to present to you this information and see if you would even consider, if we give you more information and if we actually get the grant, would you consider even becoming the fiscal agent? Once we have the exact amount and all the hours that we are expected, perhaps then would you be interested? Would you be willing to listen to more information about the grant?
Don't you need to have somebody named as your fiscal person before you can finish the grant and turn it in? Don't you
Yes,
have?
we do.
Okay, which is,
And we're looking for your support at this moment to basically become the fiscal agent. But if you're looking for more information, I am willing to put more numbers so that you can actually have more data or more information in terms of how many hours it involves.
One thing that I'll point out, going back to Bob's question about how much time do we put into it, we don't get $5,000 or $10,000 a year to administer FEMA grants. And if you want to talk about taking time, those are things that when they come in, we have to do. The COVID-19 grants, we didn't get $5,000 or $10,000 to administer those. Yes, they reimbursed us for expenses.
Yeah.
But those aren't things that we get reimbursed for. So
But those
We're already
things-
doing that.
They're the same as revenue. Those two items you just named are the same as revenue.
Reimbursements.
FEMA to buy out those properties that are habitually flooded and a constant source of concern and things. That's the reimbursement. It's,
We don't get the
there's
revenue
no direct
to
revenue.
administer.
Right.
This is talking about a fee for direct administration of this. I mean, this goes beyond what we get out of FEMA. COVID is unique, so, we'll be careful with that. It's a reimbursement for current expenses, but we still have to administer those. Those come down the pipe. We set it up as a department. It's a fund that somebody uses the checks and balances. Revenue coming in, revenue going out, yes, we have to account for it.
No, it's never going to cover it. And another thing is with an SRO, we are the entity that hires the SRO. We fund the police department. So if the school says, hey, we're getting 20% from the grant, but we can't afford the other 80, we need you to push in a little more, then they're going to come to us. To me, and I've been a part of these programs, I don't think the city should become the agent.
I make the motion to approve the MOU.
I'd second it, but with the caveat that I'd like to see if we get the grant, we get a blueprint for who's going to be undertaking this. Maybe there are other staff in other places besides City Hall that can help out. I mean, that's my concern. I don't want to say this is a great thing and then walk away and let the gals in City Hall pull their hair out trying to figure out where the hours come from.
I understand what you're saying. I want to be very clear before you vote on this. If it's financial in nature, it has to be at City Hall. If it's the financial administration, being respectful, I don't want to suggest that somebody outside of City Hall is going to administer the finances. That can't happen. But other pieces of it, as far as the administration goes, yes, I agree.
Dan, did you have something you wanted to say? I know you stood up earlier. No?
My back's sore.
Oh, okay. Okay, just giving you an opportunity.
I think it's a good program, and I think we should give it a shot. We may not get the grant.
That's right.
Correct.
I'm against it. I think we're going down the rabbit hole we should not be going down. I think it should be in a school-based event. It's primarily targeted toward youth. The school is naturally the place where you would target those programs. No, I think the school could administer it, and I would encourage everybody to vote no.
I think the school is actually doing their job by trying to keep this under control as it is. As far as administrating, this is what we do, is administrating dollars that come into our city and how we pay them out and how we approve things and keep records. This is what the job is for Independence
Why?
City.
It's so far from
We have a motion on the floor. I
reality.
call for the
No,
question.
no, it's
Have
not.
discussion. We can discuss it. The drug problem in America has been here since ever.
So we're trying to help our
60s,
young
70s,
kids.
80s, 90s. We've thrown how many bazillions of dollars at it, and nothing's worked.
We'll continue to,
There's
John.
some family responsibility needs to start kicking in here. And I'm not throwing rocks or anything else, and it's tragic that we lose anybody. But I'm sorry, I just don't see where this is gonna make any difference. I
It may or may
I
not, but
applaud your passion on it, but I don't see what this is gonna do to help.
they still need.
I agree with you that, yes, it's been a problem for years, and it's probably going to be till after all of us are gone. But administrating it is not the whole, I mean, yes, it has to come from families, but the families can't administrate this. It takes a government agency or situation to do it, who can accept federal dollars. There's not a whole lot of people who can do this. The City of Independence, we have good staff. They are very capable of doing these things. They do it as a normal basis. It's part of their job. I don't see that it can't be done. And at least with this grant, there's some money in there that will help subsidize some of those dollars or some of that expense. I'll come in and volunteer run it if you have to, in order to get this
You
done.
have to be on the payroll, Bonnie.
I don't need to be on the payroll. I volunteered in several agencies and places. I can still do it.
I hear a free employee.
Yes, I would be a free employee of what it takes.
To me, it looks like a feel-good program that we're all gonna pat ourselves on the back that we did something wonderful, and we're not gonna see any results. I'm sorry. My personal feeling.
I think it's a
Brian, you got
bad
any
use of
comments?
public funds.
You got any comments?
I do not. I'll leave that between you guys for tonight.
Jen, did you have
Well, I'm
anything?
just curious what evidence-based practices that they're going to use to make this different, make it more successful, I suppose, than what DARE was.
Well, that's part of what the coalition is, so it's the people involved in the coalition are helping to make those, design those plans and ideas and
But don't
see
they
what
have to
can
have
work.
those set up before, I mean,
That is part of, and I don't know if, Melissa, you want to address the work that's gone into the grant to this point as far as the benchmarks and the strategies that have been developed?
Yes, so I can speak to the 12-month action plan that we have going on right now. So we have to have, from day one, we get the grant money to 12 months out of what we're going to do. A lot of it entails working with the community, setting up free activities for kids, free activities for adults, making sure that we have signage out, giving, information or educating the community on substances, working with the school hand in hand if they need any life skill support, if we need any counselor support, also working with our prevention specialists, i.e. whether it's Nora or somebody else, to get the, what was the alcohol one? The Iowa code one. Somebody help me out.
Oh, those who host lose the most? That's
Yeah,
the one that,
so-
yeah.
Yeah, so initiating the social host.
No.
Hannah,
Yes.
Callahan,
no.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf.
No.
Is that everybody? So it did not pass? Okay. Sorry, Melissa. Sorry, you
Thanks
guys.
for your time, everyone.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is
I
downtown.
would like to say we had good discussion and we kept it civil, and whether it went the direction we wanted to, I think the council did a nice job on talking about this issue.
I concur with you.
Okay, downtown revitalization plan. I need a motion to approve the downtown revitalization plan completed by MSA.
This is the foundation for the Community Development Block Grant, which is next up on our agenda as well, or another item to that. But it, in essence, is the MSA effort that they've put forward over the last, I think it's 14 months now. Deb, you've been on that committee, or the steering committee, I guess.
It's probably been that long.
Yeah.
And it was approved by Planning and Zoning
did
Board,
recommend.
did approve it. Okay.
I'd make the motion to approve the downtown revitalization plan.
Second.
Okay, I do have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? And I would like a roll call, please.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Callahan,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
Yes.
Kurtz.
Yes.
Thank you, motion is carried. Now we're down to a motion to select the architect for the CDBG Downtown Urban Revitalization Project.
We did take RFQs for architectural services as part of the CDBG grant process. We had 4 very strong submittals. Curtis Architecture was the preferred or highest scoring one by the review committee. And we'd ask for you to approve Curtis Architecture to complete this project.
Did they happen to say how many downtown projects they've done?
They did, and I don't have that off the top of my head. They had not only a significant number of downtown facade programs, they all had downtown revitalization of some sort, but these guys had more facade programs, and they had I think the personal touch is what I heard over and over again, because they were a little bit smaller but more personal in their approach to this kind of a program. The heaviest part of their workload actually comes once we are awarded a CDBG grant. There's some work that they have to do in advance, but MSA's work has done most of that, so they've got a big start on it. Our next step is actually to sit down with Curtis Architecture and bring back a financial plan for you. In other words, what is the contract with them? Under the RFQ process, it's based on their qualifications. So we don't know anything about pricing. Under the CDBG program, we're not allowed to ask or make a decision based on cost. It has to be based
So
on
as the
their.
architect, like with the building across the street, they would talk about what needs to be done to meet the grant criteria and
Correct. What they're going to do right now is, once we agree to a contractual arrangement, they'll put together the preliminary cost estimates for each building that's in the program. I know that the Chamber and Economic Development are working to get the 8 to 10 businesses, 12 businesses, whatever the number is, to sign up saying, hey, we're going to do this. We have to have them sign a letter of intent. The architect will come through, say, windows, doors, awnings, tuck pointing, whatever the facade
so
requires.
he'll let them know what they have to do to meet the criteria for the grant.
Right, and that's part of what goes into the grant for costing out the grant to make sure there's enough money in there. And so everybody knows that
And the
number.
property owner has to agree to the 25% commitment on
Right.
the cost.
But that's part of the architect right now has to say, for your building, this is how much it would take. So that the building owner has a concept of what 25% looks like.
Al, when you spoke with them, did they give you any communities for recommendations?
In each one of them, they gave examples and communities that they've worked in. They have references
And you
in all
spoke
four
with
of
some of
them.
these communities?
I have not talked to the communities. The projects they've done have been impressive.
Chamber of
So-
Commerce, I've talked to a few of them.
Right.
Al made the comment, he's exactly right. All the ones that we looked at would have been qualified. You start looking for the little things that, if they did historical, being that's kind of one of our big things in town.
Yeah.
Felt maybe a little heavier for that one. Personal effects, yeah.
I'll be honest, you could put the names in a hat, pull one out, and
Yeah.
you'd have been happy with any one of them. And
You really would have, yeah.
so,
So where is Curtis out of? Where are they located?
Yeah, Des Moines.
I'll make the motion to go with the recommendation to retain Curtis Architecture and Design.
Second.
Okay, we do have a motion and a second. Could we have a roll call?
before you do that, I apologize, I don't have that off the top of my head. I do have a copy of all the proposals in my office. I'd be happy to share them with anybody that's interested.
Were they Des Moines, Al?
I thought they were not Belle Plaine, but south of Cedar Rapids, I thought. But I'm not sure that I can recite that off the top of my head. I know that Shive Hattery has a person in town. Their architecture piece comes from south of us. Align is over in Waterloo, Cedar Falls. But again, I'd have to look to give you an absolute on that.
Were they attached to our,
The proposals are not. We only did the scoring sheet through Intercog. The Intercog put that scoring sheet together for you.
okay. Okay, I do have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call, please?
Hannah,
Yes.
Callahan,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
Yes.
Kurtz,
Yes.
O'Laughlin.
Yes.
Thank you, motion is carried. Next, we are down to the airport coronavirus relief grant program.
Says they're out of Ottumwa.
Thank you. I knew it was south, but I couldn't remember where. The airport board did address this last week. It's a $13,000 grant through, I call it CARES 2. It's the second round of grant funding. The airport board was split on this, 2-2 as far as whether or not we should receive the funding. The $13,000 has a variety of things it can be used for. Wages would be one of the allowable expenses. And so we're seeking council's direction on whether or not we accept the $13,000, sign the grant agreement and return it, or if we forego the $13,000 for the airport.
Al, is this the one that would help fund some of the pavement repair by the T-hangers or not?
This is
This is
just,
a little-
this would be like your CARES Act round 2. We had $30,000 that we received earlier. This is the second phase of that. And again, because it was split at the airport board, it's coming to the council for your authorization to sign the grant agreement.
What's the downside? How much skin do we have in the game on this 13,000?
We lose $13,000 if we don't sign the grant agreement.
But we don't have to
We have no
match.
match. It's
That's
just,
what I wondered about the matching.
this is not matching dollars. This is just again, I call it CARES Act round 2.
Can he apply it to salaries of existing staff?
Yes.
Is there any projected use at all? That-
I propose to put it towards salary, which would free up part of our general fund dollars that could be used potentially for our local match for some of our other funds or improvements at the airport. We have several projects out there that require local match. What I suggested to the airport board is we would use the $13,000 that we free up as part of our match.
Dan? When it was 2-2, do you know why two of them were against getting it?
Yeah, they basically thought that we'd already allocated the money in our budget, so taking the federal funds wasn't necessary, and that it should probably, they thought that it should be used by like hospitals or things like that. My personal thinking, not speaking as chairman, but just as a member of the board, was if we turn down the money, it's just gonna go somewhere else. I don't see any drawbacks of taking the money, and I agree with Al, it'd be nice to be able to cover some of our upcoming matching costs.
I'd introduce a motion to accept it.
Second.
We
Thanks.
have a motion to accept to the airport coronavirus relief grant program. Do you need a roll call on this?
I didn't have it, but I could do it.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion is carried. Next is airport board recommendations. You thought you were going to,
The hangar built, or the
You can take your mask off.
Oh, thanks. Maybe you can hear me then. We've had an empty building for quite a while now. It's the one that Jim Connell had his business in. So we put out information asking for people that wanted to rent it. We were hoping to find somebody that would give us some maintenance capabilities on a more steady basis than what we have right now. I'd like to have the capability of performing unscheduled and scheduled maintenance. Like when things break, there's somebody there to fix them. And when aircraft need periodic maintenance based on flight hours, it'd be nice to be able to have those scheduled and performed at our place. There's a real need for that. And that's part of the reason why we weren't able to find people like that. There's such a need that there just aren't enough people out there doing it. So what we got is a proposal to do aircraft restoration. Eric Munt will bring, it's kind of continuing what Jim Connell did. He proposes to buy aircraft, rebuild them, refinish them, things like that, and then sell them. He's offering, I think it's $225 a month rent, and it'd be a 37-month lease. So it'll bring some business to the airport. I don't see it generating a lot of city revenue. It's an occasional tank of gas or something like that, but it does keep the airport busy. And the board had a special meeting just this afternoon, and we recommended that we bring the proposal to you. Of course, you guys are the approval authority. You know, the final say on how much and everything is up to you.
Yeah, wasn't it 275 before?
No.
It was 250,
175.
was it, for Jim?
Was it 175?
It was 350 for Jim, and then
Lowered it.
about 3 years ago, they lowered it to 175. They cut it in half because of Jim's dedication and commitment to the airport, but it had been at 350
Because
prior
when
to
I first
that.
got onto the council, it was 350.
Right. So, we've had different numbers thrown around by different folks, but Eric Munt proposed 225. We had left it open-ended when we advertised for these folks to tell us what they thought the building was worth. I'll leave that up to the council. I think that 225, and I made this comment to Mr. Munt and to the airport board, I think 225 is a little bit light, but currently it's 0, so it's somewhere between some and none.
I make the motion to approve this.
I'd second it.
Will he do maintenance?
He said he's prepared to provide unscheduled maintenance as needed. He's not gonna turn away somebody when they're broke down, of course. So he will do that. His proposal did talk about in the future, some of the things he wanted to do. All kinds of things that he included in there, including maintenance, but that's something in the future. When we talked to him in person, he was more focused on the current restoration sorts of things.
Perhaps Dan down the road yearly inspections, would he be qualified to do that?
He's fully qualified to do that. He has all the certifications and things that he needs.
I see.
Yep.
Sounds like a good fit.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think this is a good lease. You guys have done your due diligence, spent time looking. Maybe it is a little light, but as you said, it's that or 0. So I think it's time to fill the building and move
No
on.
income.
Didn't you make a motion to approve this? Did we get a second on it?
I'll second.
I second it.
Bob
Oh,
seconded.
Bob
Okay.
did.
I'd let Susie decide which voice she heard first.
I'd heard Deb's first, but I didn't hear the
Did you get the second one, though?
You can have it.
I wrote
This
your
one,
name already.
this one, would you like a roll call, please? Go ahead, please.
Hannah,
Yes.
Callahan?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
Yes.
Kurtz?
Yes.
Laughlin?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried. Thanks, Dan.
Dan?
Next on the agenda is a motion to approve the agreement with the Iowa Department of Transportation. This is for 150, our
No, this
maintenance?
is, well, yeah, it's
What?
Highway 150 in city limits. It's our 5-year maintenance agreement for Highway 150.
Okay.
Same as we've done. I'll make the motion to approve it.
Second.
Okay, I do have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call, please?
Callahan?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
Yes.
Kurtz?
Yes.
Laughlin?
Yes.
Hannah?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion is carried. Next on the agenda is Independence Light and Power's 2020 write-offs for 2021.
So moved.
Can I ask a question? From the year before, do these seem to be going up or down, or, you see what I'm asking you, Al?
I did not have a chance to look at last year's, so I won't say for sure. I think it's up a little bit this year, just from memory. But, this goes to set aside, and, there's other things that we can do with it. Some of it we get, some of it we don't.
Well, and I understand, I guess one of the things that people complain about a little bit, they don't throw stuff at me or anything, but, you can see the electric moratorium that happens. but then this person still has cable. I don't know, that kind of irritates people, I should say, but just sometime when you look, just to see what direction we're going.
Yeah, and again, I'm strictly off of memory, and that's a tough spot. I want to say we were in that $14,000 range last
I
year.
thought it was a little, I mean, I didn't know how much, but it just seemed to me, I was trying to go back to my notes, I didn't see it, so if you
Yeah.
just gaze upon it once well, but
I think with the pandemic, it added a new
sure.
dimension to it this year that we haven't had in other years, because there's things that we weren't able to do or enforce, if you will, in the same manner, so that
Yes.
might have had something to do with it.
It's more understandable because of the pandemic, so.
But their board has already voted to do this, right?
Yeah, it's a matter of, we have to take our step in the process to do that, because it is a municipal utility.
I wish, we asked them last year if they, instead of the spreadsheet going sideways, if they would put it so it was more readable.
Hit the button.
Which one?
The circle.
Ta-da. I stand corrected.
Mike, they heard you.
That's good.
Don't feel bad, my
Can we do a
third grade
roll call?
granddaughter teaches me.
I don't have a second written down. Did somebody-
We need a second.
Oh, I thought we did have a second. I'm sorry. Okay. Do now have a motion and a second. Now I can have my roll call.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Scharf,
Yes.
Kurtz,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Callahan.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion is carried. Next on the agenda is a motion on the EMS 28E agreement for our ambulance.
At this point, we are relegated to GMR, who is the local 911 or emergency medical response proposal on the table. It is a $390,000 subsidy in year one. It's a minimum of a 3-year agreement, and Area Ambulance did withdraw from consideration completely. They're not even on the table, or by their choice, not ours. And in order to allow us to enter into a mutual or shared expense, the 28E agreement is the avenue that we have available to us. Steve was kind enough to put this together, and I'd let him address anything that he has on that.
Could I raise a question while he's preparing himself? I notice we've got Buchanan County, Independence, and the hospital, but why nothing about Winthrop or Jessup?
In the conversations, and I think that's a fair, we did talk about some of the smaller communities. Jessup and Fairbank have their own ambulance service locally.
But it is volunteer
But it is volunteer-driven,
and can be hit and miss.
right, and Area Ambulance has historically covered when they haven't been able to. But the county is the umbrella for these smaller communities, and that's kind of the approach that they've taken to it. It's not that we've ignored them or left them out, but the county just put them under their wing.
I thought Carl had an excellent idea with, what was it, Carl, to?
Well, it was I don't know if it ever going to get out of legislation, you know, we talked about it before, Al, if it ever gets out, where, since it's a central medical service, that it can be taxed. But
They're,
they're working on that.
they're working on it. We've encouraged them, since this came up, we've encouraged them harder.
Yeah.
But at this point, I don't have anything that I can share with you to give you hope. I don't want to say that this is at a critical point, but they need 90 to 120 days to ramp up and bring their services in for GMR. And we've got a partner in the hospital right now that's willing to pick up the lion's share of this the first year, because we don't have the financial wherewithal in our budget. We've already adopted our budget. So the hospital's picking up the lion's share in year one. We'll make up for it in years 2 and 3. I don't have the exact numbers on there. I asked Steve for that, and I haven't received that today, but it's basically a 25, 25, 50 match year one. And then year two, we would have to pick up more of it on our side of it and repay the hospital for their contribution. The goal is at the end of 3 years, it's a third, a third, a third, which is reasonable.
Oh, we've got to provide ambulance service, that's all there is to it.
We're over a barrel. I'll make the motion, we approve the 2080 agreement.
Second it.
The only thing I'd like to add before, just so y'all have your expectations, appropriate expectations going into this. You're the first to meet on this, correct? The county hasn't met. I reviewed,
The county did.
Did the county,
Well, they sent the,
That
did
was
you
one
see the
thing.
email from the county?
I did, there's some questions on theirs, they haven't acted on theirs. The hospital has approved this in
Yeah.
concept.
Yeah,
The county has the county attorney had a couple of questions that I've shared with Steve, and we're working through that, but the hospital has approved their participation.
yeah.
right, and I don't want to get into the detail of the legal opinions and issues that they're looking at. But just suffice it to say, they have some outstanding questions to answer. So it's possible that you would approve this tonight. The county may not, and it might come back in a different iteration down the road. But the only way that you could potentially have agreement in place when the county meets is to go first. So it may boomerang back a little different, or it may get approved, conceptually as is. And obviously, there's some fluctuation in what those percentages may be per year. But as Al said, I think everyone's proceeding with the understanding that it would be fairly equal over the course of the years.
Correct.
With it a little light on the city and the county in year one, given where budgets are.
Correct. And I know Deb and Bob sat in on those. I don't want to misrepresent anything that you might have heard differently.
No, I think that's all accurate.
What's, I'm sorry?
I just didn't want to misrepresent anything if
Oh.
you heard it differently than what I did.
No, it just, and not all the supervisors agree with the county attorney either. so.
Right.
Surprise. So I had a motion, did we have a second?
Yeah, we did, I think
Did we?
so.
Okay, for roll call,
I made the
please.
motion.
I second it.
Hale,
Yes.
Scharf,
Yes.
Kurtz,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Callahan,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Thank you, motion is
I
carried.
think on this too, we should give a pat on the back to the city, the county, and the hospital, because we've all been thrown in a very difficult place on very short notice. And also particularly Steve Slesser, who's possibly on his way to Decorah now, but he's hung in there and helped us too when he could have just folded tent and prepared to leave. So it's been a good group effort.
I agree. Okay, next on the agenda is a motion to authorize signing a letter of intent to pursue the CRS program, the Community Rating System Program for flood insurance.
I'd make the motion to approve it.
Second.
I do have a motion and a second. I don't see that you need a roll call. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion is carried. Next on the agenda is the ordering of the new police squad.
We're just looking for authorization to pursue our FY '22 CIP squad vehicle. I know there was some discussion about pickup versus SUV. Brian wants to talk about it.
So at our public safety meeting, I brought up the idea, I had spoke to a chief in another community who, because of supply and demand, I mean, we experienced it too here 2 years ago where we waited a year and a half, almost 2 years for a car to come in just because of plants closing and everything else. And with supply and demand, the current Interceptor or Ford Explorer, the value and the price on those have gone up quite a bit because that's what all agencies are buying right now. So he actually looked at one of the Ford trucks, the F-150 in the four-door model, and it was substantially less money that he could get that on state bid versus the other one. And I don't know if it's just a supply and demand thing or what, but, and then when you look at what a resale value is on a pickup truck, you might get a little bit more money back out of it too. So I just kind of threw that out there. There are other avenues though. I mean, if you switch over to a truck, we have different stuff that now has to be mounted into that vehicle that now we're not taking out of an old vehicle and putting it into it. So there is a little bit of cost there. It's just, I just kind of threw out the idea.
Would that cost outweigh?
Well, without putting pen to paper and getting all the numbers on what the state bid is on the Explorer versus the truck, looking at those two numbers, I think, then you'd also have to look, is there a different in fuel economy on both vehicles over the course of a 3 or 4 year period that we're going to be running that vehicle? So, I mean, I think all that stuff would have to be looked at to get a hard number on it.
So
Is
probably
there
at this
enough
time-
room in a king cab of a truck for what you need, like normally in, what is it, a police car?
There, well, and it's, again, it's a different storage system, so now you're gonna have different storage in the back for some of your stuff versus in the hatchback part of it. The actual transport area would be about the same size.
Okay.
However, you're also now stepping up probably, an extra foot, if you've got a dog or something, or if, on a prisoner transport, you're moving somebody up an extra foot to get into that vehicle instead of just sliding into it at
I'm gonna
ground.
have to follow the law so I don't get arrested because I couldn't get into it.
We can get step stools.
You don't have to worry.
I'll need one too, so it's
Don't worry
okay.
about that. Yeah. That was some of our
I heard
police
recently that
officers.
Dodge was going into the Interceptor business too, or not?
Dodge does offer, it's like the Dodge Durango. It's the SUV that Dodge, and there are other agencies that are going to that. It's just all of our equipment is set up for the
designed
ones
for
that we have now. So, and I don't know what the hard number is on those either as far as what cost-wise goes.
So are we better off to order this one, but to look at the next time?
I'm just thinking it's worth thinking about for the future. That if
I would suggest, and I put it in my notes here, I think that we want to review that as we move ahead, but in the interest of getting this ordered, if we get your authorization, proceed one way or the other. I think we can review the state bids on the pickups, try and do some cursory review of what the equipment would look like going in there. I know that the police department is interested in saving money and being prudent with that as well, so if you give the latitude for them to proceed with reviewing that, but I think we're going to have to get something started sooner than later because of some of the lead times that we're seeing.
And I would say that the ease of use, obviously our patrol division has not had a truck like that to say, yeah, we like it, it works much better, it's easier, stuff can be stored in the back. We just, without trying it, we don't really have that, and there's not a lot of agencies around that have a lot of the pickup trucks right now. Everybody's waiting.
I have a question for you, Brian. And, like right now, I know you guys keep a certain amount of material and supplies in the back of the Explorer. How much importance is having that material be somewhat insulated or heated versus being in the back of a pickup that's not going to be heated?
Not a lot of it, because the stuff that's more important, even in the far back, because of the way the cars are set up, you've got a cage or a partition before the actual back hatchback, which kind of separates it, and then one between the driver and the back. The stuff that's more important, like our AEDs and things like that we need to try to keep temperature controlled, we put that in the back seat, which would be right behind the driver, so that way it's open to heat and air conditioning and things like
I just
that.
wasn't sure if there was anything in the
Stuff in the back would
Explorer
be,
that would have to be
fire
warmer.
extinguisher, measuring devices for accidents, things that wouldn't drastically be affected by climate.
Okay.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
So, did I hear a motion?
I'd make the motion to order it.
Second.
Okay. And you don't need okay. Motion and a second to approve this. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Pose the same. Motion is carried. We're down to reports. Anybody have anything? I have a couple of items I want to,
I have one question.
What?
And I think Al's got a couple calls on this. when they change the water meter out, the new one, when will they be able to actually read it? Are they able to read it within, I guess what I'm asking is, some guy, he was, and there's a couple people, but they're confused. We got through the thing with the $50 thing, okay, we got through that. That can be a visual read yet. But on the, eventually, is this correct, the new meters, eventually, they'll be read up to the plant?
Well, there's two different ways to read the new meters because of that module that they put on the outside of the house preferably.
Right.
They can drive the neighborhood, instead of the meter reader walking to each house and putting his wand up against that module the way they've been doing it, they can simply drive down the street and the Wi-Fi will collect it. That's my understanding, I think that's where they're starting. Eventually, it's all about signal strength. They can just punch a key at the office down there and download segments of town at a time.
But supposedly, right now, when they have if they're going by or whatever like that, the readings should be just as accurate, if not more accurate than they were before. I'm correct, right?
Yes,
As
that's,
far as you know, I'm not
as
trying
far
to
as,
put
as
you
far
on
as I know, that's the intent, that's
the line
correct.
or anything. But the question was, I guess, and I think we said it before, because other cities have had that, and we're going there, but eventually, I guess I got into a little dispute after the veterans thing the other day, and I don't understand why people don't want to change their meter. This guy didn't want to change it just because he didn't want to. And so I agree, maybe $50 is a lot, but yet you got to pay for somebody to go do that. And so I was diplomatic, I hope. But then the other person that approached me on the meter reading as it is. But as we go forward, it's not like you're going to read it. It's going to be on a monthly thing, just as we are, right?
Same as we are. The difference, property owners would appreciate the fact that with this system, if you've got a leaky toilet, or you've got a leak that you're not aware of in your house, they can call and tell you that there's a leak showing up that you wouldn't notice. And in the long run, it will save you money. If you've got a leaky toilet and they call and tell you, you've got hundreds of gallons of water that could go through that in a month, and you don't know it. If you're going south for the winter and you don't shut your water off, you have a leak. You'd like to know about that before May when you come home to a new swimming pool.
I hope I answered this guy's question. I don't know if you had, I'm not naming names or anything, but he was confused to the billing thing or whatever like that, so I said, I will ask him.
This does not change your billing. You still have monthly billing. You still have, everything else the same. The difference is how do they read your usage. The one thing, and I did receive a call for the second meters. Instead of doing a monthly sewer service credit, you use the same meter, the same way you've been doing it. At the end of the season, they take a meter read, and you get a credit for all of your sewer service fee for that season, all at one time. So instead of sending somebody out to calculate each one individually, we had agreed that we would do one credit at the end of the season. So that was the one question that has come up. I thought we had answered it, and it came up again last week.
Okay.
And they've got the record of who's got those meters to get that.
All 442 of them, or whatever. It's 440-some people that have, or there's 440-some second meters, or third meters in some cases.
I had
So-
7 people contact me in the past week about this. In fact, 3 came together to my house. They allowed it all to be done. There were problems with their plumbing when they were done. And it was not, the paperwork was not sent in appropriately to the billing station up here. And Craig Price, the meter reader, had to straighten it out for him. I guess he, just made contact with up there, and it took a process, but they were finally able to do it. But they're not the first 3. In fact, I had the same thing. I thought mine was all done well. My plumbing was done fine. But Craig came to my place and said, you haven't had your stuff done. I said, yeah, I did. So I took him down and showed him, and he said, well, it's not showing up here, and so.
So that was what Travis had talked about the last couple of months when he said he has a number of them that weren't reading right. And I think the original time he had 80, and by the time he got to the Public Works Committee, it was 100 on his list. Most of them, they found that when they get to that gel pack connector, they walk up, they clamp it, they crimp it a little bit tighter, and it works fine. That would be more than 90% of them. Now, there have been a couple that have had more issues or different issues than that, but for the most part, the most common piece is they weren't crimping them tight enough. And we've been working with them, we've made them aware of it, we've had, I think 3 phone calls with HydroCorp over all kinds of issues with how do you wrap this up, how do we make contact, how do we follow up with people that had to change out a valve. And, I mean, all the things that we need to do to close out this project, but that was one of them. We've made them aware of it. We have the handheld device that will ping it, so we can go up, crimp it, ping it, yes, it works, and move on to the next one. In a lot of cases, if that doesn't take care of it, we knock on the door, whether it be HydroCorp or our guys. We try and fix it right there so we don't schedule the appointment. We want to just get it taken care of. And that's kind of the approach that we've taken. But if you've only heard from 7, that's a small miracle
That was
because
last week.
I know that the list was at one time roughly 100 addresses. It's just a matter of closing it out. It's a pretty simple project to crimp it.
Are we nearly done?
No.
Who discovers that it's not working right?
Well, the water plant, when they go to ping the meters for their reading, it doesn't read.
Yeah.
So then they do an estimate. And when they get the estimate, they say, wait a minute, this goes on the list as it doesn't read.
So if you haven't heard nothing, yours must be okay.
Yep.
I had somebody call me this past week or email me, and then I had them call me, and we talked about it. She had been looking to get her meter replaced because she had been working quite a bit, or she was a little apprehensive, because of COVID, but now she's willing. But she had not received additional letters encouraging her, or had been seeking out information to get it changed. I imagine there's probably some people out there that are wanting to do it now, and I encouraged her to call City Hall, and I would, maybe make sure that people understand that if you want to get it done, and maybe you didn't schedule it the first time because of, various reasons, that we definitely want to get it done, and they should be, I'm assuming, calling City Hall and.
Call up here, call the utility plant, we'll get you in touch with HydroCorp. We also have made arrangements with HydroCorp when they have their schedule open, they're supposed to go knocking on doors of those that have, are showing up as not changed yet.
And it's my
So,
understanding that they are now scheduling Saturdays?
evenings and Saturdays.
Saturdays. So just for the general public, if you haven't done it and you want to do it, and, make sure you make the phone call and get on it.
We're, and the other phone call, Carl, speaking of the $50, we don't want that $50. We want to change your meter. And if anybody who's willing to call and work with us, it's not a concern. That $50 is about those that absolutely refuse to let us come and change the meter or HydroCorp change the meter. It's not that we're looking for that money. We don't want it, but it's a disincentive to leave the meters as they are. We have to get them changed. So anybody who's making any effort at all to change the meters, we're not going to go out with the meter reading charge. Just work with us on changing them out.
Well, as I said to that gentleman, one of them, we could have made it higher. It was just, we don't want to make it so low that you won't do it. It's got to be an incentive, just like anything else, and I don't know, I just think that was a fair number for having somebody, pay somebody to go read them and stuff. But, no, and I emphasize what you just said, we're not trying to punish anyone, we're not trying to get rich off that, of course, we just want to everybody be on the same page and be coherent and do what we need to do to get everything on time done. It's quite a process, and you know, and I won't go into it now, but we talked a long time ago about the smart meters for the electricity. I don't even go there at this time, but anyway, I told him there was a hint of that in the future, but thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
I have two items. I opened my mail today when I came in earlier, and I have a letter from Iowa Municipal Finance Officers Association. I know this, I think this is already in the newspaper, but I'm going to read it anyhow. It says, Susie Lampe, City Clerk of Independence, has earned the designation of Iowa Certified Municipal Clerk, which is awarded by the Iowa Municipal Finance Officers Association. IMFOA grants the certification for municipal professionals designation only to those municipal officers who have complete demanding education requirements and who have a record of significant contributions to their local government, their community, and state. The Iowa Municipal Finance Officers Association, in conjunction with the Iowa State University Office of State and Local Government Programs, and in partnership with the Iowa League of Cities, sponsors the Iowa Municipal Officials Certification Program. The mission is to ensure educational commitment to establish and maintain competent administration for city government in Iowa. On behalf of the IMFOA Board of Directors, I am honored to endorse in the confirming of the Iowa Certified Municipal Clerk designation to your city clerk. We share your pride in this achievement, and we applaud your support in the role Susie plays in your city. I think that's a great thing for her to have. She's been doing a great job. My other one was more of a fun thing. I have a friend that I get together with my Red Hat friends on a weekly basis, and one of them had a injured raccoon at her house that ended up getting caught under her deck, and this is for the police department. So Officer Logan, I cannot pronounce his last name, she wants to thank him for his assistance with this injured raccoon. And I gather there was some light plant people working in the area, so they kind of helped him. They had longer poles or something to help him, and she had a cat carrier or something, so they ended up getting it in her cat carrier, and then Wild Thunder ended up coming and picking it out. But Logan is, I've heard compliments on Logan in other areas, but this one I thought was interesting, that he did such a great job. So when you go back tomorrow, make sure he knows that he is appreciated by our city citizens for his help in different things that they do. So, does anybody else have anything else you'd like to bring up?
I just have one question. I guess it's for the community and myself, too. We have a second and third reading on so many things. We waiver that. What is the purpose of even having it?
Well, the interpretation of the second and third reading, if you have a routine ordinance, and I'm going to pick on the division of taxes, you don't have people tell you that they don't want you to divide up the taxes that you collect on a property. It's a requirement that you do it by ordinance, but I don't know why you would say, no, we're not going to divide up the taxes. On a TIF project, for example. Or in the case of a second or third reading on taking the property out of a TIF district so that we can collect the taxes on it, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. There are issues that we have second and third reading because you have things that are going to be potentially confrontational or raise issues in the community, but so I think there are a time and a place for it. I think we spend a lot of time on second and third readings that are routine, so it's a matter of philosophy.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I have something for the celebrations committee for the 4th of July coming up here. We're getting ready to put out a call for volunteers. We're going to put it out a little earlier this year. So we're looking for people to please help us run this event. It's all volunteer-based, being that it's going to be potentially the biggest or the first big event that happens that could be potentially, COVID or CDC okay, or whatever the case may be. It's our concern that we may not have enough volunteers. So we're going to put a call out a little earlier to make sure that, please come down. I mean, we're going to follow all the CDC rules as,
We have a list of jobs we could look at to.
yeah, we have it on our website. And, but, you know, we're going to follow all the protocol based on CDC guidance. And being that it's an outdoor event, you know, we're getting less and less protocol on there. But we definitely want to encourage people to volunteer. This could be a very, very big year for our event, and we want to make sure we represent our city well, because it is an event that attracts citizens from all over the region.
So is there somebody they could call if they don't have a computer where they can get on your website? Is there anyone they can call, a number they can call?
We will put something out where they can call someone
Okay.
for volunteer purposes. So,
Okay.
What's
we
that
just-
start as early as Friday one, or how early that you're wanting volunteers?
What is it again?
How early you're wanting volunteers to be some on Friday and?
Yeah, it's a 2-day event, so it's Friday and Saturday. And generally, we start somewhere between 4 and 5 o'clock on Friday. And so we'll ask volunteers to probably be there about 15 minutes before, just to get an understanding for whatever it is that they're volunteering for. It's most of the volunteers that we need are either going to be in the ticket booth, taking money and selling tickets, or in the beer garden, checking IDs, taking tickets and serving a beer or water or pop or whatever the case. Just one of the things we're doing this year that we're looking at trying to do is separating the beer and the water and the pop into 2 different tents, still in the same area, but make it so that, the kid doesn't have to stand in line with 50 people looking to get a beer, to get a water.
That'd be
So
nice.
That's one of the things we're trying to hopefully do a little better this year. But I think the volunteer effort is always a challenge for us, even in non-COVID years. And I think that this year we're expecting a pretty big crowd, and we're really, really going to need volunteers. And it'll make it easier for everybody, because nobody wants to wait 20 minutes for a beer.
Or even a ticket to buy it.
Yeah, that's right. So
So then Saturday, it's after the
Saturday,
parade?
generally, we'll start roughly 10:30, 11, right after the parade. We'll have Kids Zone and different things like that. So it'll be somewhere around 10:30 to 11.
Okay.
And that'll go till 11 o'clock at night. So,
And the parade this year is going to be on the west side of town rather than our normal over here off of 150. I'm still not sure of all the details. Do you have more details on that, Brian?
There's not a concrete. So I talked to Nikki at the chamber, and she doesn't have a concrete route labeled out. Just an initial thought process of starting out in like the Veterans Park area and staging off in that residential area, and then going west on First Street, and then filling into like where Kidsville and Home Indeed is there, kind of the offshoot spot, which alleviates a lot of the other problems that we were having. But
Are
she
they-
doesn't have anything
Have
concrete
they thought
yet.
about starting it that direction out by Kidsville and coming this way instead of doing it at Veterans Park?
And that's just the initial, that's just initially, I told her, once we formulated a route and we were looking for approval, then she's going to come and talk to the council about that. And so that'll be coming. She wasn't ready for that yet, and tonight was a very busy council meeting.
Yeah, yeah, okay, thank you very much.
Mayor, I did have something. The Watershed Committee is meeting for the first time in person since COVID hit, so we're going to be meeting next Tuesday at 1:30 at the Walter House down on Quaski Diagonal. And they're going to be doing a tour of an oxbow and everything down there, too.
Can
Okay.
non-members, could I go and?
Sure.
Okay.
Mike, I think that's a good point. All council members would be welcome to attend, and I think you'd find it very interesting if you have a chance to see some of what the Watershed folks have been doing.
I know one of the agenda items is to confirm who the authorized representative and alternates are for that committee also. So I think you're still listed as a alternate, right?
That's correct.
And our ambulance meeting is tomorrow or Wednesday?
Wednesday morning
Wednesday.
at 8:30 at the hospital. The Tim Shields fundraiser is June 11th. Golf outing in Ankeny. If anybody's interested, let me know. But it's June 11th. And that's through the League of Cities.
That's the day before our
Day before our cleanup. Give you a chance to limber up.
Yeah.
Don't pull a muscle.
Okay, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Let's go home.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. We are
All supposed to leave
out
our
of here.